Hello and welcome to another Board Crazy review. I am D, and today I will be reviewing Irish Gauge with these two.
I'm Graham.
And I'm Will. Hello, everyone. All right. No fanfare today. I appreciate it. Just let you guys know.
Oh, I could have been like, I'm Irish Graham.
Yeah. Missed opportunity. Well, what are you going to do? Anyway, before we actually get reviewing this game, we're going to run my introduction to it from our gameplay video, if you haven't seen that yet, so that you have an idea of how this works before we start talking about it. So here that goes. Irish Gauge is a game for 3 to 5 players, designed by Tom Russell and published by Capstone Games. In this game, players will build up and buy shares in railways across Ireland, and the winner will be the one who can earn the most money. To set up the game, first the share certificates are separated by color, then arranged from lowest value to highest value and placed next to the board with their matching locomotives. Next, 12 dividend cubes, 4 in each of the 3 colors, are placed into the bag and then randomly drawn and placed onto each of the starting cities on the board. All of the remaining dividend cubes then go into the bag. Finally, 1 locomotive of each color gets placed on the indicated spaces on the board, and each player receives 20 pounds. Before the game gets properly started, there is first an initial auction. Players will bid with the 20 pounds they received on the top share certificates of each of the 5 railways going from left to right. The opening minimum bid is equal to the enlarged value shown on the card, and from there players in clockwise order either make a higher bid or pass. The winner of a bid takes that share and becomes the opening bidder for the next share, and if all players pass on a share, then the opening bidder gets it for free. Once the initial auction is finished, players then take turns taking actions in clockwise order, starting with the player who won the yellow share certificate. On a player's turn, they must take one of 4 possible actions, one of which is auctioning a share. When a player chooses this option, they choose any one of the topmost available share certificates to put up for auction. Then they must make the opening bid, and bidding proceeds just as it did during the initial auction until one player wins the share. Another option is to place railway tracks down for any railway in which the player owns at least 1 share. Players receive 3 build points when taking this action, and different hexes have different build costs depending on the terrain and whether or not they are occupied. 1 locomotive for each railway can be built on most hexes, with the exception being difficult hexes which can only support 1 locomotive total. Locomotives must be placed on hexes that are adjacent to hexes that also contain a locomotive of that same color. Whenever a player is able to connect the game's 3 major cities of Dublin, Belfast, and Galway, there is an immediate major city dividend, and 12 pounds gets split up proportionately among all players who own a share in that railway. The third option is to place special interest in a town and convert it into a city. When a player chooses this action, they look into the bag and draw any 1 dividend cube of the color of their choice, then place it on the square on that town's hex. The town chosen must have at least 1 railway connecting to it in which the player owns at least 1 share. The final option is to call for dividends. When this action is taken, the player randomly draws 3 dividend cubes from the bag and places them on the game board. The colors of the drawn cubes determine which cities will pay dividends as a part of this action based on the cubes already present on those cities. In order for a railway to generate income, it must either connect 1 paying city and a town, or 2 paying cities. Each paying city generates 4 pounds, while each town generates 2. Once the total income generated by a railway is calculated, the money is then split proportionately among its shareholders. The game ends after the turn in which a player draws the final dividend cube from the bag. Then players add up all the money that they have in hand, as well as all the values of all of the share certificates that they've won throughout the game, and the player who has accumulated the most total money is the winner. Okay, so now that we're all experts on Irish Gauge, us and the viewers at home, let's talk about it, boys. This is a game that does some things that I really, really enjoy. I like basically everything about the stocks, the bidding, and the cubes in this game. I think they provide a real fun kind of constant risk-reward and constant like recalculating of your strategy. For example, So, like, when it comes to, like, the stocks, obviously the railways you have will pay out. There is benefit to monopolizing a railway, because that means all of the income from that railway will be coming directly to you. It's not going to be spread out among you and your opponents. But, of course, doing so, you have to lose money up front. Because having multiple stocks of the same railway does not gain you more money. It just prevents your opponents from taking from you.
Yeah.
So all the money you have to spend on additional stocks of a railway, that's money you're just losing.
Yeah.
You're not getting that back. And then your opponents will have, knowing that, will have the opportunity, even if they don't want it, to sort of bid you up so you're losing even more money. And there's just a lot of, moments like that throughout the game where you have to constantly kind of like work out like the numbers.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said. The bidding phase is probably what, especially that first bidding phase, is what brings a lot of nice tension to the game. Yeah, but anytime a bid comes up, you never know, one, when the next person is going to put a bid out, because all of us throughout this have an eye on the next stock that we want. So one, it's that timing part of it. It's like, almost like push your luck. Who's going to call the next bid? And then the also bidding itself was done very well, I think.
It's simple.
I think there's a lot of fun in this game also, just trying to focus on what other people want in regards to stocks and calling for a bid when you have no intention of winning it. Just to see if you can make them spend enough money so that now you have the money advantage going into the next bid. Stuff like that, like little tactics like that are... I find them to be really satisfying, and I don't usually love bidding in games, but I found the bidding in this game, like Dee kind of said, it's both fun and it's I don't know if charming is the right word, but it's sort of easygoing. It's not necessarily, it's tactical and there's tension, but it's also just enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think the whole system works. I love how it works with the cubes, because the dividend cubes there's a finite number, 10 of each color. You know that going in. So as they get drawn, the values of them change. Right. So like the moment one of them is drawn, it's useful in that moment, but it devalues that color for later in the game because there's fewer of them that are going to come out. So you can have scenarios where like one railway is really relying on one color. All that color comes out, like 3 of those colors come out on one dividend pool. Suddenly that railway is no longer that valuable. So that stock for that railway is no longer that valuable.
Exactly.
And so it's constantly fluctuating. And then towards the end of the game, it can go back the other way if there's runs on other colors. So yeah, it's just this.
And like I said before, the amount of
Hey, look, we're the dice tower.
Oh my gosh.
We're stuck.
We're the dice tower. If the dice tower poured out like a sixth of the components.
What was I going to say is kind of what I said before is they provide. The game is not overcomplicated. So when you're trying to figure out what your value is for the bid, it's not. It still takes a lot of thought and strategy, and there's risk to it. But at the same time, it's not like too much where you just feel like I don't know what I'm to do so I'm just gonna jump out. I feel like I can actually calculate. Like, okay, I'm willing to spend that much. It's a little bit of a risk, but there's still a good chance it'll pay off based on all the information you have on the board.
This is a game where like the meta game is really fun. Kind of like predicting. You kind of both said like predicting your opponent's maneuvers in the future based on what's available, the information that's available, and like how the game's been played. Because more so even than like the actual mechanics themselves or the theme or whatever, they're all I think fine. But I just think kind of like thinking of this game like it's more abstractly is where like a lot of the fun lies for me at least.
Definitely.
Yeah, I was. I often thought I almost tried to approach the game as like. I want all of the moves in the game to be my moves. In the sense that, like, if I can predict what you guys are going to do, then in essence, I can strategize around them, and now, like, your strategy becomes part of mine. Almost like you're executing part of my own strategy. Now, it doesn't always work out perfectly. Yeah. I don't want to spoil the video or anything. But, like, it doesn't always work out perfectly. But it isn't, like you guys said, part of the fun in this game is just trying to think about what your opponents are doing. And, I think this game... It's easier to do that than a lot of games, and I think that's one of the reasons I found it to be the main gameplay to be pretty satisfying. Yeah, why don't we talk about some of the cons of Irish Gauge for a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I think there's one main one, which is I think the game struggles to keep everyone competitive at all times. Like it's a balancing issue, basically. I think most games of this, you're going to see either one player it's like a runaway leader, or you're just gonna have one player who's way behind and can't catch up.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
Yeah.
It's definitely the main problem in this game.
And I feel like it's a game about like capitalism basically, and like it's an economy type game, but. So like it thematically makes sense, the rich get richer and you can't really do anything about it. But like as a game, it's not very fun.
Yeah, it doesn't make for no. Because once again, I don't want to ruin anything in the gameplay, but there was a decision early on that one of us made that I think really affected the outcome for the rest of the game. It was like it put one of us behind by way too much, and it was just really impossible for that person to catch up.
Yeah, because I think it's the first call for dividends can really swing the game.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't bring in money, and the other people do, it's
exactly
toast, because then the other people can start purchasing more stocks and calling for dividends more, and
It almost feels like the dividend, and I guess it naturally does scale, the dividend scale, but almost you can have someone in a position that just gets really lucky the first time, and it's not even that hard for them to get that lucky, where they can just have a significant amount more money than the rest of the players.
I've noticed now, maybe this might be only like a 3-player problem, but I noticed that there's always one rail line in this game that just doesn't really do much throughout the whole game.
I think it's probably a 3-player.
It seems like it's a 3-player problem. Yeah, because there's not that 4th player to or 5th player to like add to the line. So there's always one line that seems to be forgotten.
Yeah, and there's only so much time that can be spent on doing auctions and whatnot. You kind of at a certain point you kind of want to stick with what you have and try to get the most money out of it. Yeah. It's gonna be a little daunting to okay, gonna diversify now.
We just don't like blue, I guess.
Or not in the video we didn't.
Well, no, but in our other playthroughs, blue always seems to be that one rail line that gets forgotten. But the basic concept is in 3 players that could become an issue because whoever ends up saddled with that line is probably not going to win.
Yeah. Anything else before we talk?
Yeah, I have one more additional problem with the gameplay. The problem sometimes you have with games where they have only a handful of mechanisms. Like in this game, there are 4 actions you can take.
Right.
It's basically the whole game. What the problem that creates is that for me, I found the placing train action to feel like busy work. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like placing trains in Ticket to Ride is satisfying. Another train game because you collect the cards you've taken. So that game's so luck heavy though. So when you get the cards you want, it feels so great to finally be able to play them. But it's satisfying to put trains out. You would think in a game about trains, like the train part would be the most fun part. In this game, the train part just feels like, all right, I'll waste my... It feels like not really wasting your turn, but it feels like it's wasting your turn because you're just like, all right, I'll just put these trains out. And it seems like to me that the lines kind of just always go in the same directions in the sessions we play.
Well, I mean, there's no obvious courses for them to take.
Yeah, and because they always start in the same spots, it's like there's no real reason to ever mix it up. So placing trains is like, oh well, I've done this before. So the yellow train's gonna dominate the south, and the orange train's gonna dominate the north. And I don't know. It didn't feel like there's enough variance in the train laying.
I guess
so.
I feel like it's one of those. I get what you mean about
this game's more about the money.
It feels like a wasted turn. I mean, I think that's true mainly later in the game. I think early on, there's a definite rhythm to this game. I think early on there's a lot of train laying, and then once everyone started to get some, cities and towns connected, then the dividends start to be called for. Then the auctions start coming a lot, and then at that point, laying trains seems like questionable because there's the next person might make money or.
I agree with you. I had that same thought. It almost feels like it's
a little too static.
Yeah.
Rigid.
Yeah, and to me it was like I just want to lay all these trains so we can get to the bidding. You know what I mean?
Anyway, the game looks quite nice. I think.
Yeah.
It's not it's not garish or anything, but I think it's fairly minimalist style. But I think it does a very good job. Thanks to Ian O'Toole, the artist here, one of the better ones in the game today. You see the board just. It's.
It reminds me of a board you'd see in a board game that was actually produced in the 60s or 70s.
Yeah, kind of.
You found it in your grandparents' house, and you're like, "Oh, this smells horrible," but it looks cool.
Yeah, but it's not busy. It communicates all it needs to very well.
Yeah.
It's you get Ireland. That's what you really want. It's green. It's Ireland's shape. Yeah.
There were some typos, right?
There are some production issues. Yeah, there's a misprint on the dividend track down there.
Just one.
A lot of people have also had issues with glue stains on the board. I don't think we've had the bad luck from that. It's usually like in the near the seams where they fold up.
Yeah,
I don't think we got one. We
got a lucky.
Maybe a newer print possibly, but yeah, that's also been an issue with the production. But I think the actual components look very good. The cards are, I think they're kind of neat and old timey. All the pieces are wooden rather than plastic, which is
Nice.
always nice. And the rulebook's
It's a simple, double-sided sheet.
This game is easy to learn.
Yes.
Absolutely, and really, and surprisingly, it plays quite quickly, I would say as well.
Yeah.
Which are always perks.
So, Dee, should we do our final thoughts? Wrap it up. You start. We have a different scoring scale. I mean, we each use a different scoring system.
Because we're consistent.
And because we're quirky.
We're individually consistent.
Very well.
Irish Gauge, game I like. Again, like I just said, it's easy to learn, quick to play. But it doesn't feel like a filler game, which I think is important. It doesn't feel like you like a waste of time or like a throwaway sort of thing. It's got, I think, a really good a good depth of strategy, a lot of good player interaction. The competitive imbalance thing does hold it back for me a little bit, but it's still a game I'm going to recommend. I'm going to give it 4 stars.
Okay. Yeah, I like the game. It's a very...
You hate the game.
Basic game. It's like a great introductory game for new board gamers, I think. There's...
More so than Ticket to Ride?
I would show this to someone over Ticket to Ride.
There we go.
It is less random.
I like this game more than Ticket to Ride. Not that Ticket to Ride is bad or anything.
You love Ticket to Ride.
I love Ticket to Ride. But it like I said, it has a few issues that are hard to just turn away and kind of ignore
because they can under the rug.
Yep. But I don't know. Can I do like a half a thumb? I'm gonna do like a half a thumb to a thumb up.
Change his scale.
And it's a wobbly thumb up. But I am excited for the sequel.
Thumb up.
Ride the Rails.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you guys basically said everything. I like the way the game looks. I think it's got some interesting mechanics, especially in regards like we talked about already with the money and the bidding. That's really fun. But I have some concerns about replayability. And so for that reason, I'm going to give it... I'm in that B-B range.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like Graham, where it's soft, the rating. But I'm going to give it a soft B.
A soft B.
Yeah, or a hard B-. Figure it out.
I don't...
B-+.
If it was a test grade, it'd be like an 83.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's your new scale now, out of 100.
Nope, we're not doing out of 100.
Okay. That's our review for Irish Gauge. We hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Come back Friday.
Yep.
For our next video, which will be
gameplay.
a gameplay video of another game. That'll be good.
Fantastic.
Yes. Also, our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are all linked to below. You can follow us on those if you'd like. You think I know how to do this by now.
He's struggling here.
I did that. I did the other thing. I think we're done, guys.
Yeah, I think we are.
I think we're done with train games for at least a week.
Nice.
But yeah, until next week, thank you. Till the next video that you watch by us. Thank you for watching. Bye.
See you next time, everybody.